You guys hear me? Is this thing on? How many of you would like to get to lunch on time today? Show of hands. Couple of you? You guys were fine. You've got plenty of cookies. I'm going to go ahead and start a little timer for myself since we don't have a countdown clock. I'm just going to set that right there. Is that okay? Keep an eye on that. I want that back. I'm so excited to be here. I'm just stoked that Kevin and Randy and Jim had asked me to come out and speak. This was sort of a last-minute thing. I don't normally have a lot of time. And I actually had plans with my wife this weekend. I completely forgot about when they called and said, can you come out and talk to us? And I said, yes, I would love to talk to this audience. You guys are amazing. You're so connected. And my wife was like, honey, we have plans. And I said, can my wife come? So she's here today, and I'm excited that she's here to see this presentation as well, and looking forward to your feedback today. And in order to be able to get that, I'm going to ask that everybody please take out your cell phone. There we go. Turn it on. And if you're on Twitter, go to your Twitter app, and please take notes there. It's kind of been known historically that you go to these events and you go to the Broadway shows and you go to big conferences and somebody walks out at the beginning, or you hear this ominous voice that says, please turn your cell phones on vibrate or turn them off so that it doesn't disturb people during the presentation. Well, things are kind of changing. Right now, brands are waking up to the fact that they can go out and give a presentation like this about their products and services and have the people in the audience actually become an extension, a reach of that marketing department that they have that's trying to do as much as they can to broadcast their message around the world. And what I would like you guys to do is, if you have an idea or a thought that comes from my talk, I want you to tweet it out. You can post it to Facebook if you want, but that's not necessary. You can post it to LinkedIn if you want. That's not necessary. What I really want you to do is post it on Twitter, and if you can, put my name in there, @JoeyMcGirr. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little hashtag down here, and it says it's a hashtag, it's the # PureMo12, and I started using that hashtag the other day because I asked the guys that were running the conference if they had one so that we can, as attendees, communicate with each other sort of silently with one another during the presentations while listening to people talking. In fact, yesterday, Steve Harper and I were having a little conversation via Twitter because we could see each other were talking. And I think only one other person other than myself were actually sharing some of the great ideas that Steve was putting out yesterday. And I think that's kind of a travesty. I think that sure, there's people that aren't here that would have liked to have been here, and we have an opportunity to kind of share a little bit of the goodie that's coming out of this event with those people that couldn't be here today via social networks like Twitter. All right, how many individuals do we have in the room? Individuals? Kind of hard to see? Yeah, I know some of you are like, what? Yeah. So, oh, sorry, I was supposed to pause for laughter on that one. Speaking of individuals, the world's full of them. Facebook last month reported that they had over 901 million active monthly users. That means 901 million individual Facebook profiles logged in to see what was going on in the world and what their friends were doing, which was pretty fascinating. It's a huge number. I'm kind of a skeptic when it comes to the numbers, especially when it comes to the numbers online. People like to throw great big huge millions, billions, and trillions at you to kind of impress you. What's really impressive about these numbers is that on a typical day in March, 526 million people logged into Facebook. It's huge. That's a massive number of people. That is an enormous audience that you guys could be tapping into. And the question I have for you is, if you're not there, why not? And if you are there, are you really making the most of your reach with this network? And this is just one of hundreds, dozens that are really effective that you could be using, but it's the most largest online social network. It's only been the largest for about 4 years. 2008, it surpassed MySpace. Where's MySpace today? We don't know. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, I can kind of get you guys to be thinking in terms of, sure, Facebook's great, won't stick around forever, but I need to learn the skills and the abilities to be able to communicate with my audience from where they're at as things change. Because we know that there's new things on the horizon every day. So for about 100 plus years now, big business and large marketing firms have spent a lot of money, trillions of dollars, mass marketing the globe. They have just tried to reach every single person that they can. And the one thing that they're missing, the biggest mistake they're making, is that they're leaving out the individual. As I proved earlier, this is a room full of individuals. You guys are all here for your own reasons. You're here for your own motivations, and they're all different. They're all unique. If I came out here and I gave a blanket presentation and I was only talking to one person, I'd be missing an entire segment of the audience that would be just checking out, not caring. There's probably people that have heard this presentation before and they're checking out, not really caring. But what I really want to get across to you guys is the reach that you can get from these types of online tools. And I tend to talk a little fast. I'm from California, so if you guys, if I'm losing you, then get on Twitter and go ask Ori, because he'll probably look on his iPad and be able to answer your questions and help you keep up. But I really want to, I use this, it's called an acrostic, right? Reach actually is 5 different words that I'm going to use to explain what it is that we do at my firm to kind of help connect with our audience, to engage with them, and to reach out to the whole world, one individual at a time. So a little bit about me. I don't want to take a whole lot of time talking about me. A couple years ago, I got labeled the social media why guy. And everybody was talking about social media gurus, and if you're in the industry, you know how much you hate the term guru because it's so new. You know, you could be a guru of like geography because that's been around for a while, right? But social media is sort of new, and I don't really consider myself a guru. A guru is the kind of person that has reached the mountaintop. They've learned everything there is to learn. I'm the why guy because when businesses were coming to me a few years ago saying, I want to get on this social media thing, the first question I always asked them was, why? Because the first letter in REACH is R, and that stands for reason. The reason is very important. Not a lot of people understand that social media is extremely different than your typical marketing platforms, your print media, your television, your radio. It's an opportunity to actually have a conversation with your audience instead of just going, here's what I want you to know. Here's a blanket message that I want the masses to understand. You can actually have a one-on-one conversation which transcends your ability to actually connect to people to multiple levels way beyond what traditional marketing has done. So when you think about why and you think about your reason, think about where your consumer's coming from as an individual. You might remember about 15 months ago, there was this kind of big deal going on in North Africa, this revolution that changed their entire culture over there. The whole history of what was going on in Egypt and Libya was changed by tools like Facebook and Twitter. They were using Twitter to communicate secretly so that they could figure out where things were going on. There was I think he was a Berkeley student who was studying world government, went over to Egypt, and he was asking the locals, how do you guys know where to get together? Because I'm missing the code. There's some secret. There's a painting on the wall. How do you guys know where to get together and have your meetings? And they said, we use the Twitter. And he's like, oh. So he got on Twitter. He found out where the meetings were. He went to a meeting. And while he was there, he was arrested. He was able to get out one word tweet, arrested. But his friends back in the States saw this message, knew where he was. They called the school called the embassy called Egypt. 24 hours later, he came out of jail and tweeted out one word, released. That's powerful. That's very powerful. He had an audience that was listening to what he was doing a half a world around, and it was all because he was able to take advantage of these tools. Today, there are children being born, I love this, in Egypt and in Libya, and their names are Facebook and Twitter, right? 20 years from now, you might actually hire a young intern into your office, and their name might be Facebook Jones. Something to think about. In terms of reaching out to your audience and having a good reason, you guys may be familiar with this brand, McDonald's. They're kind of big. They've served about 100 billion burgers in their time frame that they've been around, and they have about 19 million fans on their Facebook page. And I always argue that they probably had 19 million fans before there was a Facebook, right? And so McDonald's understands that their goal isn't to go out there and speak first. That's why they have television. With Facebook and other online social networks, they aim to listen first to what their audience has to say and then speak after that. So those 19 million people were probably already fans of McDonald's. They liked the Quarter Pounder, they liked the Big Mac. And so they went there to express their interest or disinterest, and McDonald's took an interest in listening. There was a Twitter campaign recently where they used some fancy hashtag, why McDonald's. I don't remember exactly what the hashtag was, but McDonald's got roasted on it because people were, saying why they didn't like McDonald's. But it gave McDonald's an opportunity to now have a dialogue with those people and make some changes for the better. So McDonald's isn't alone. You may, if you watch television, notice that there's some other large brands that are taking advantage of their opportunity to connect with their audience. Adidas, Bud Light, Toyota, Cheez-Its, there's thousands of them. If you watch television, oftentimes you'll see, the news will say, some breaking story, tell us your opinion at facebook.com/, KXAN, and your local news is now getting on the game because they know that they can broadcast to you, but what they really want to do is have a conversation with you. They really want to listen first and engage with you and learn from you. Click. There we go. Speaking of engaging, so this is kind of how I see the world, by the way. Everybody in here kind of looks like that through my eyes. Everybody's happy and always having a good time, because I live on Facebook and Twitter all day long, right? And so it's predominantly pretty positive. If anybody were to get on there and be negative, people tend to check out and not listen to them. But speaking of the individual, which is what I want to kind of make this all about for you guys, the individual has their own likes and interests. From their perspective, their own motivation. They're going to like you on Facebook, they're going to follow your blog or follow you on Twitter, they're going to subscribe to you on Pinterest or whatever, based on whether or not they care or not. So you can try and run incentives to incentivize them, but at the end of the day, it's really about them and what they like, and you creating content that drives them to you and engaging them really well. So there's a book called Click. It was written by Ori and Ron Brofman. And in the book, they tell the story about a young girl named Kelly Hildebrandt. And a couple years ago, Kelly Hildebrandt decided to do a search on Facebook for herself. And I know Donna was saying yesterday, you should Google yourself, and I highly encourage you should do that on a regular basis because your brand is out there. And Kelly was just curious. She wanted to see what her brand looked like to the rest of the world. What she found was a young man in Texas with the same exact name. Thinking this was interesting, she engaged him. She sent him a private message on Facebook and said, "Hey, isn't this fun? We have the same name." And that was all it was. A couple days later, he responded. They started a dialogue. A little while later, they started dating long distance, and today they're married. You can actually go check out the story. It's quite interesting. It's a lot of fun. But what I'm trying to translate here is that from your perspective as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a business brand, is that you really want to try and engage your audience and build a relationship with them. Marry your customer before somebody else does and starts making beautiful business with them. All right, so I talked to a couple people last night at dinner who expressed how much they enjoy getting up and stretching, so I went ahead and threw this slide in. So if I could have everybody stand up, we're going to do a little exercise. Because I could see all of those tweeting thumbs out there talking about my stuff. So I have really, there you go, I love it. I have really enjoyed getting to meet people here. And one of the things that I get to take for granted that most of you don't is a lot of people I haven't even met yet, I've had conversations with on Twitter at this very conference, and I'm looking forward to meeting them. Right? Thank you, Sloan. And I'm even posting on Facebook that I'm here, people that know that people are here that I haven't even met are saying, "Hey, say hi to that person." People have said, "Say hi to Ori," because they know he's here, because he's active in that space. So here's the exercise. We're going to take just 1 minute, and I want you guys to find somebody you've never met before in your life, and you've got, as fast as you can, find something you have in common with them, and then break. Go. So did you guys meet somebody you'd never met before? Did you guys find something you had in common with them? I had the extreme pleasure of sitting with Jim Moore last night at dinner. He's so happy I'm talking about him. And we're sitting there talking, and my wife is sitting Jim's on my left, my wife's on my right, and she's talking to somebody else about where we live, and she mentions the town we live in. Jim stops dead in his tracks and says, "What town was that? You were there, right? You remember dinner?" He says, my wife says, "So we live in Leander, Texas." Sorry, Jim. I gave it away. He says, "Where at?" We tell him the neighborhood. He says, "I am 2 minutes from where you live." I mean, just incredible that you can do that. But if you don't have the time because you're busy, you can extend that reach digitally to your audience through these types of social tools. And that's hopefully when I'm done and I teach you guys a little bit of how-to at the end, you guys will see some different and new and unique ways you haven't taken advantage of. I know there's a lot of people here that have extensive networks. They're very well networked. Imagine a tool that would connect you to other very well networked people and eliminate the time it takes you to have to go through the process of conversating with them. Right? Wouldn't you like it if you actually ran into somebody like Ori and you just had a list next to him of all the things you had in common? Not just all the things he's interested in. It eliminated everything in just the things that you had in common. That'd be really useful. That would eliminate the time it took you to go, where were you born, where did you grow up, where did you live, where did you go to college, and finally to find that thing that you guys have in common that you can connect over. So, audience. Audience is huge. 2012, South by Southwest, about 2 months ago, I was fortunate to sit in the front row for Amber Case's keynote speech. Amber Case is a cyborg anthropologist, which, yeah, there was kind of a chuckle when she came out on the stage and said that and at South by Southwest, but by the end of her presentation, nobody was laughing. It's very serious. We live in a world where people are connected through technology. Wikipedia defines a cyborg as an organic organism that's enhanced through technology. Your audience is turning into cyborgs every day. And you have two options. One, you can learn how these tools work and adapt. Learn how to speak their language because they're going there whether you go with them or not. And the other option is get yourself a translator. Right? You guys remember C-3PO, the only role he had in the movie was to tell us what R2-D2 was talking about. Because we all liked R2, we wanted R2-D2 in the movie, but we wouldn't have a clue what he was saying. I mean, Han Solo was translating for Chewbacca. Chewbacca was fine. But R2-D2 needed C-3PO, and R2-D2 is what your audience is starting to turn into. How many people think that your audience is starting to sound like a bunch of beeps and whistles? Right? Thank you. So, how are big businesses figuring out ways to connect to individual audiences on a massive scale? An offline version of that is something my 4-year-old daughter loves very much, and that's Build-A-Bear. You have an opportunity to no longer go to the Walmart or wherever you go and the FAO Schwartz and just pick any bear off the shelf. You can customize the bear's clothes, the color of the bear. If it's no longer a bear, it's a giraffe now or a bunny rabbit. You get to actually have what you want. You no longer have to deal with what's available. Subway and Chipotle, same thing. They custom make to your specific specifications your lunch. Could be every lunch. If you're like me, it would be every lunch. I love that. I love the opportunity to not have to go anymore and say, I'll have the number 7. And if you're like my wife, she likes to customize everything. You go to Subway, they've already got a model built for that. With technology now, there's places like Zeit, which takes and custom crafts your news. Anybody here using Zeit? A couple of hands going up. It's actually a smart app. As you're looking on the web for content that you want to digest intellectually, Zeit is figuring out what matters to you, and it's crafting more of that and filtering out the stuff that you don't want. It's learning you, and it's learning how you read the news and the types of things that matter to you. It's allowing you to shorten the time span it takes you to dig through the digital garbage out there and find what really matters to you. Social media does the same exact thing, only it does it on a very soft scale. This, you've got hardware, which is your phone and your iPad and your computer. You've got software, which are apps and different applications that you have on your computer. But with social media, it's the softest form of technology. Yes, it's technology, but it's humans having these interactions, and sometimes on a massive scale. So C stands for? Very good, thank you. No, actually it stands for content. Okay. I nailed that one. Yeah. Okay. So there's something that I want to ask you guys. How many of you here, if I can talk to yourself? Yeah. So a couple of you took immediate action, and the rest of you were sitting there going, do I talk to myself? The great thing about that is, have you ever been sitting at your computer or watching the TV or driving in the car and you're all alone and you have a really great idea? And you're thinking about business. How many, don't raise your hands. I know you guys think about work all day long, right? I do. Everywhere I go, all I'm doing when I'm getting to bed, when I'm getting up, right? You're thinking about great ideas, and you're thinking about the new initiative, and you're thinking about the thing you want to talk about tomorrow because you slept on it and you feel so great about it. With social media, you have an opportunity to actually share that stuff with your audience and let them kind of give you some feedback on it right away. You don't want to share all your goodie, but you don't. At some point, you got to tell the world everything you're doing. If you're having a lunch, it's nice to be able to give them a little bit and whet their appetite so that when the time comes for you to say, here's our big launch, they've been listening to it all along. Hollywood's been doing this for a long time, right? They put out here's the picture of the dinosaur, but it's just a silhouette. Now here's a stencil of what the theme park logo is going to look like. And then you get into the theater and you see the dinosaur and it blows your mind and you tell all your friends, right? You can do the same thing, just like Hollywood's been doing and spending lots of money doing. You can do for free right from your phone because you already have the application and the tool. All you got to do is now build the audience, individually or as a corporate brand. So this gives you an outlet, but one little caveat that you should remember, Twitter now donates every single tweet to the US Library of Congress. Every tweet. So 10,000 years from now, scientists are going to be looking at us going, what were these guys talking about? So think very, very long and hard about what you're going to say. Don't think too long, say something, but just remember that you're going to create this history of yourself for all of humanity. And that's kind of a big deal if you think about it. Sure, it's a digital, but we don't know that computers might live forever. And if Amber Case has her way, we're going to be combining with them at the singularity in about 23 years from now. So there's two ways to kind of digest content. There's the content that you put out that I just talked about, which you guys own. You take ownership of that. If you want to, people, I overheard these guys at a coffee shop one day. I was sitting there waiting for an appointment, and these guys were at least in their 80s, and they were sitting there, how you've seen these, they've been retired for 40 years. They almost speak in a short talk, the other day my daughter got me to sign up for, and the other guy cuts him off and says, Facebook. He goes, yeah, and they got this thing where and the other guy cuts him off and says, will you tweet? He's like, yeah, and so these two guys are having this conversation, and he's saying, well, I don't want anybody to know what I'm up to. I don't want anybody to know what I'm doing. But he doesn't realize that he can control what he's saying. I remember about 4 years ago, I was telling all my friends that, because they were having the same issue, like, how do I say something but not give away too much? Well, just think about it if your grandmother was listening, That's kind of the context that I take it under. I don't want to really put out anything I wouldn't want my grandmother to know. So you don't have to be vulgar, and you be yourself, but you don't have to go out there and say everything. Just say what you think your audience wants to hear, and your audience is actually going to give you feedback. You guys love getting feedback, right? You guys track all your analytics, you look at all the reports that come down on your finances and all this other stuff. Well, you can actually track the temperature of your audience based on the content you're putting out. The content is telling their reaction to the content is telling you whether or not they're reacting to it or not. The other aspect, so there's two. There's the stuff you put out and the stuff that comes back in. And I've heard it actually at this very conference. People talk about, Randy, I think, just made a comment to how he doesn't want to look at his pictures on Facebook of people's dogs and, the ballerina recital the night before. Or, my favorite is always pictures of people's food. I take pictures of my food and I broadcast it out. I'm going to apologize to you guys publicly. I do that because sometimes I eat at a place, like here at the Marriott, where the food is so good it's worth photographing. It's just amazing. I want to eat the photograph, right, Ori? And so I'm going to take a picture of my food. I'm going to broadcast it out. And my audience, guess what they do? They respond back. I have a friend in Austin, Will Staney. Hi, Will. And Will posted a picture the other day of a plate of bacon. And he just got this long list of people engaging and responding to that. A plate of bacon. It doesn't have anything to do with what he does, but he's able to gauge his audience and find out if they're listening or not. So when it comes to the flip side of this, you guys paying attention to what's coming in, I'm going to show you something in the how section of this about how you can actually filter what you see so you, like me, don't have to dredge through the sea of garbage that is the white noise that is broadcasting out through Facebook and Twitter and all these other tools. If we can get this story. There we go. So how do you stand out? How do you find those individuals that you want to have stand out from all the fuzziness and all the noise that's out there? Dan Pink wrote a great book called Drive. Anybody here read that? It's excellent. And in there, his primary thesis is our intrinsic and extrinsic motivations. And he talks about the carrot and the stick mentality of the 20th century and how, we would dangle an iPad or some beautiful little nugget over here. Hey, if you do this, you'll be entered to win a contest to win this. Or if you, or if you, the other way, the way we treat our employees, if you don't do this, I'm gonna, and we're finding that those kinds of mentalities don't exactly work so well, and especially in social media. His book doesn't really touch a lot on social media, but I got a lot out of it, especially around things like this. Like us on Facebook, and you'll be entered to win a free iPad. Well, what happens when the contest is over and I didn't win? Am I contractually obligated to continue liking you? I didn't like you to begin with. I wanted the iPad, so that's great, but you got to go a little bit further. You've got to take it to the next level. I see this kind of contest all the time, and it's so disappointing to me to see people that aren't putting a little bit of thought into how they're actually reaching out to, engaging their audience, and trying to get them to not just reel them in because there's an iPad at the end of the deal, but because their products and services are worth it, and they're listening and they care. So you guys are busy, and you're probably thinking, how do I find time to blog and to tweet and do all these kinds of things? And a guy I'm real excited to talk about is Tom Peters. You guys know Tom Peters, right? He wrote a couple books, talks a lot. Tom is all over social media. He's got YouTube videos. You go to YouTube and type in Tom Peters, you got videos for days. He tweets. I've actually had conversations with him on Twitter. He's listening to his audience. He's engaging his audience. He's providing his own ideas, which are very valuable, all through 140 characters at a time. And he blogs. And there was a conference he was at. He was on stage with Seth Godin, and he even said, no single thing in the last 15 years professionally has been more important to my life than blogging. And when I heard that, it blew me away. I have a hard time finding time to blog. So I had to find ways that I could blog really, really quick and have really great content so that I didn't have to be sweating bullets thinking, oh my goodness, if Tom Peters can blog and I can't, I got to find the time to be able to keep up with Tom Peters. And I really hope I don't get sued over that comment because I think Scott Adams probably is going to watch this video. Anyway, so one tool that I'm real excited that you guys can use, and by the way, none of these are clients of mine, so I'm not getting endorsed to spread these. What I really wanted to give you guys today are some tactics that I use personally. Sumify was purchased by Twitter back in January, and what they are is a news aggregator. A lot of CEOs and very busy people will use social media to aggregate their news. Right? They want to stay on the cutting edge. You've probably heard that Twitter is about as real time as you can get, and whenever things happen, they tend to break there first. And what Sumify does is it takes all of the people that you personally follow on Twitter, because it says if you're following them, you obviously care about what they have to say. And then all of the stuff that gets broadcast out the whole day. So I follow 2,000 people on Twitter. It's a lot of noise. I can't sit there all day long and kind of figure out through that whole mess of tweets where the real value is. But the stuff, the links that they're tweeting out are getting rebroadcast, sometimes by multiple people, and then those people have an audience that are retweeting and rebroadcasting that. What Sumify does is it looks at everybody that's tweeted that I follow for the day, and it looks at all of the links to the material. And I follow a lot of people in my industry, particularly thought leaders. So think about this. If you want to know what's going on the cutting edge of your industry, get on Twitter, follow the people that are thought leaders in your industry that are using these tools, or follow the people that are broadcasting what those people are saying. Create an account on Sumify that then aggregates all that, and once a day I get an email about 5 or 6 things that are the most important things in my industry. And believe it or not, there are actually days where there's not a whole lot going on in the world of social media. It's usually Sunday. Like people take the day off. So what Sumify does is it tells me what everybody else is tweeting about. And I have a lot of friends I've met in Austin area, about 1,000 of them in the last couple of years, that talk about things that are going on in Austin. So every couple of days, guess what I get? I get a little more information about what's going on in my community, which doesn't really affect me as a business owner directly. It will indirectly, because it gives me an opportunity to get out into my community. But I get to know what's going on. Whereas all my other friends are like wondering what's going on, I'm right on the cutting edge of the information, and I'm able to keep in touch with that in real time. Another great tool that I love to use, it's an app that you can use on your iPad, and it's called Storify. What Storify allows me to do is it allows me to take all of the content from the web, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter, YouTube, Flickr photos, Instagram photos, whatever it is, I can take and just slide that information right into an empty field and then lay it all out chronologically however I want. This was an event I went to last week, and there were people that were there tweeting out all of the good stuff. So I could pay attention to the speaker, anything I thought was valuable I could also say, but I can also go in later and get almost the entire conference and pull it in. And in this particular case, the person that was talking was a videographer. He made a video, and he was talking about his video at the conference and showing it to people. Somebody there tweeted out the information about the video, but then I went to YouTube and just put the video right into my blog. Literally before that session was over, I had a blog written, published, and was ready to upload to my website, right from my iPad. It didn't take me a lot of time because I wasn't actually writing it. I was just giving a little context to the in-between of the tweets that other people were saying. And if I wanted to, I did the same thing with Amber Case at South by Southwest. I was literally listening to her talk, adding my own commentary, tweeting and communicating with the people at the conference. I know this probably already sounds like a lot. And going to my Storify and able to organize all that stuff, taking pictures, broadcasting them on Instagram. And by the time her talk was over, at the end of the hour, I had a blog post. And I didn't have to go out to the hallway like a lot of other people do and sit down with my laptop and figure it all out. I'm not that good of a writer, so the opportunity to have other people do this for me has been such a huge help for me. So what I'm trying to say is, blogs used to be 500-word essays. They're not anymore. They're videos. They're podcasts. They're Twitter tweets. Your YouTube's, slide the YouTube video over, give a little context, hit publish, off it goes. It's an app on your iPad, super easy to use, and it's going to save you a lot of time and help you reach your audience. All right, so this last app that I want to talk about was the darling of South by Southwest. How many people here know about Highlight? Yeah, I don't see any hands, which is not surprising, because I have Highlight on my phone, and if anybody here had anything in common with me, my phone would have vibrated and let me know. It would have given me that list of things that I have in common with you without me having to take the time to figure out what those are. How valuable is that? So it's a fun way to get to learn people nearby, but there are times where I'll forget about Highlight. I'll go through my day, I'll be cruising around town, and then it'll buzz, and there'll be somebody that we have something in common with that's nearby, and sometimes I get to meet them. Sometimes I'm on my way out, and they're on their way into a same restaurant, and so I'll switch over to Twitter and start having a conversation with them. It's extremely valuable because it's not just there's another person on the same technology. There's a person on the same technology, and we have something in common. How would you like to go to an event like this and have an icebreaker and a fly, have an icebreaker with every single person at that event? Know exactly how to begin a conversation. I love Steve's example yesterday from stand in the corner and scan for the other guys standing in the corner, but you don't have to do that anymore. And I wish he was here today because I would love to show him how Highlight works. I think he'd be real excited about that. As well as his own app is amazing because now I could take, for example, if I was at a party and my phone buzzed and I looked down at it and I went, oh, Richard Branson's at this party. We have 6 friends in common and we share 25 mutual interests. And I look up from my phone, and there's Richard Branson, and we're making eye contact. And now I have an opportunity to walk over to him and say, rock wall climbing, buddy. We should get together sometime. I know you're totally into it. You dig it. I dig it. We should go. Let's hang out on a mountainside sometime. And he might say, sure, whatever. Who knows? But the point is now, if that doesn't work, I've got 24 other icebreakers that I can use on him, right? And if he's set up his phone the same way I did mine, if he's smart, and I think Richard Branson's pretty smart, he probably had his phone buzz when I walked in the room too. And he probably was walking over to me because to say, hey, my phone just buzzed. I saw a picture of you. I looked up and there you were. I thought I'd cross the room and come and say hi. That's fantastic. This takes online social networking to the whole new level, and that's making it a real world, real person, one-on-one interaction, which I totally dig. So say Richard Branson isn't your cup of tea. There's a couple other guys out there there's a lot of very busy professionals that use these tools to interact with their audience. And if any one of these guys were to get together and connect and combine their audiences, they would multiply massively the number of people that they can reach and connect with. And in fact, feel free to go ahead and tweet these guys and let them know I'm talking about them. I wouldn't mind that at all. But the other thing is as they share their ideas and connect and communicate with their audience, they're being rebroadcast multiple times. I've even heard Guy Kawasaki say that he's been accused of retweeting the same content. And his response to that was, I retweet it until it stops getting retweeted 2,000 and 3,000 times. So I'll put it out, and it gets retweeted to thousands of people, and then I'll put it out a couple days later, and it gets retweeted to thousands of people, and then a couple weeks later, I put it out, and nobody cares anymore, and that's when I stop putting it out. That's huge, and every single person here has an opportunity to build an audience like that. So what now? Let's go back to the original point. We're trying to reach individuals. So remember the individual. Remember that the assembly line is dead. You need to create products and services that appeal to individuals, that let them custom make. Give them an opportunity to communicate with you in a forum, like an online social network, but don't just pick one, pick them all. Last time I checked, most of them are free. All you need to have is the time and the willingness to learn the skill set or to get yourself a C3PO. And if you happen to see somebody do something really cool, how many times have you seen a really cool campaign done and you went, oh, that's great, we should do that? Things are changing. And the new cultural norm is if you do the same thing you saw the really cool guy do yesterday, nobody's going to care. I can't tell you how many times I've run a really successful campaign and tried to duplicate it, even in a different market, and it didn't work the same. You have to be the guy who invented the other 3 wheels. You've got to always constantly be innovating. Doesn't mean you have to do it bigger, doesn't mean you have to do it better, sometimes you do, but you just got to be a little bit different and a little bit more innovative and a little bit more creative and a little bit more thoughtful, and always be thinking about the individual. So, in a world where your online identity is basically narrowed down to a Google search, like Donna was saying yesterday, it is absolutely critical that you own that online identity, that you know what people see when they Google you, that you understand how your presence is being perceived by those in the world that are looking for you, because there are people looking for you. I know there are probably people here that knew somebody else was going to be here, I did, and wanted to get to meet them and hadn't met them before. And if you're like me, you went and Googled them so you can learn a little bit about them so that when you do meet them, you have those icebreakers. So get yourself highlights so that you don't have to worry about that, and also Google yourself so you know what people are seeing when they Google you. And then that's it. Thank you very much for your time, and if you want to reach me, that's where I'm at. I had about 150 slides originally, and I had to cut it down to 40. I could have gone on all day.
Okay, I don't know who else's guilt meter is way up there, but I was having lunch with Joey and last week, and we were talking about that, is that there's just so much that I know we need to do, and this was just tremendous. I just love this kind of content. So we have time for a few questions before we head out for lunch. So, Sam? There you go.
I also understand that if you're not really great at it yourself, or you're a bit of a dinosaur, you can get people commercially who help you with your blog or help you with your connectivity and everything else. What's your position with respect to having someone else help you with it besides doing it yourself?
That's a great question. I get that question a lot. As an individual, it's critical that you have your own unique voice, that you're the one that learns how to do it. And even if you were to get somebody else to do it for you, how would you know if they were being effective if you didn't understand a little bit of the basics? Guys like Tom Peters and Richard Branson might hire a copywriter to craft some unique things for them to say, or even a press piece that would go into their blog, but they have a unique voice. We all have this fingerprint to our personal brand, and then Donna did a great job of translating that for us yesterday. And you can't replace that by outsourcing that to anybody. You can't replace who you are, that essence of who you are. And it really does translate in 140 characters. A lot of people don't think that it does, but the way you put a smiley in there, or the way that you use a truncated word instead of saying playing and you put play in with a little comma or something, that really translates as to part of your personal brand. I know that the mayor, was it the mayor? No, it was a Texas state councilman who has an assistant who will tweet out that he's going into session, but as people respond, he responds personally. And that's probably similar to situations with Tom. I don't know personally how Tom Peters has it set up, but he's a busy guy. So he's either crafting that content and putting it out because it matters that much to him, or he's got somebody putting the content out, and then as people respond, he's putting that personal touch in and responding to them. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Got another question? Of course. Get over there, Drew.
Now I'm in trouble.
Can you hand that back to Drew?
So thanks. This is great. Question for you in terms of content. What are 2 or 3 examples of common mistakes of bad content? So what are some things not to do that are going to turn some people off?
Let me think about that. See if I can think of some good examples. I'm sure there's 1,000 good examples out there. Well, people, you definitely want to, if you've been on Twitter, you've seen where people will put in there, my views do not reflect my employer kind of a thing. But sometimes if you do outsource, like Nike's a large brand, so it's acceptable for a brand to have a brand manager monitoring that. It could be outsourced, it could be in-house, but they could oftentimes say things terribly wrong. I know Chevy had a situation not too long ago where somebody tweeted out an expletive, and they ended up losing their job, and it damaged the brand. So brand damaging things, content like that could definitely be really bad for you. It could hurt you personally, it could hurt your brand as a company. Any content that doesn't fit the corporate culture. I've seen a lot of people in the past, I haven't seen it recently, but on fan pages on Facebook, I call them fan pages. So a Facebook page is a place where you can go talk about your business or any other kind of entity other than an individual. And I have seen where people will create one, the Marriott, for example, and then all they talk about is hot air balloons and kids picnics and ponies, and they're not talking about anything that what the fans want to know. So it's good to be social. You want to be social while online, even as a brand, but you also want to create content that I'm there to get. If I show up and you've got content that is not what I'm looking for, I'm going to leave. But if I show up, and even if it's today, if it's about hot air balloons, it better be about hot air balloons over Lake LBJ, right? And then tomorrow, it better be about the discount at the buffet at the Marriott, that kind of thing. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Cool.
Time for one more question before we head out here. Sloan.
Uh-oh. Hi, Sloan.
Hi, Joey. How
It's
are you?
nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, we have a lot of friends in common.
We have so many conversations.
Yes.
It's great to finally meet you in person.
Yes, it is nice to meet you too, although I hardly see you.
Twitter, Facebook, we know lots of people together.
Yeah.
So, as you know, this room is made up of a lot of executive as well as marketing people. And one of the challenges I have as a marketing executive is if I'm working with an engineering type person, they don't understand the benefit of social media and they don't think it will drive sales. And if I'm working with a C-level executive who hasn't been in social media, they don't understand the power of it either. So can you talk a little bit to that about how we communicate the message that this doesn't necessarily drive only sales, but it drives a lot of other things as well and the importance of that?
Absolutely. So, it's one of my favorite questions because it's so much more than sales. McDonald's wasn't thinking, if they might have been early on when they were scratching their heads thinking, the Facebook thing, what's this all about? Hey, we could probably sell something here. But I was reading Chris Brogan's blog from last week, and he put it right on there. He's never moved a single dollar from anything he's ever done on Facebook to a bank account of his that he owns. So thinking about sales is such a small part of its potential. It's such a huge opportunity to know who your audience is, have a direct conversation with them, capture their temperature. Do they care at this particular time? And if not, why not? And have those conversations with them. I mean, you can use it for recruiting. I was talking to the guy from Build a Sign the other day in Austin, Texas, company, and they don't even use the Facebook for anything other than here's pictures from our company picnic and how much fun we're having, and if you want to come to work with us, here's the kind of fun things you could be doing. Oh, and here's a project we're working on, and here's the people that are working on it, and they love what they do. Wouldn't you love to love what you do? And so there's so many applications. You could probably spend a whole day writing out all the different uses, and for any engineer to not get that connectivity is critical when it comes to marketing your product, and any C-level, C-suite executive who doesn't understand the impact of being able to not only have an audience, but to be able to engage them. And also remember, when you do engage with your audience, and when they do talk back at you, they have a network that you can't even see. And that conversation is being filtered out to their network. So there is a huge marketing aspect of it. So you don't want to leave that you don't want to leave that out. You certainly want to try and track that if possible, but your audience is there. Your audience is R2D2, right? And so you need to either figure out how to get a hold of R2D2, whether or not you want to be there or not. I've talked to Randy, we were talking, right? And you were like, well, I'm not there. I'm not on Facebook or Twitter. I didn't even know we had a fan page for Pure Momentum. Oops, sorry, did I let that slip?
That's
right?
true, yeah. We were joking about it earlier.
Trying to push his guild button.
Yeah.
But we're going to fix that. And what's great about that is I knew it was there, and I'm his audience. You guys are his audience. Sloan, savvy enough, Ori, savvy enough to know that you're going to go look for this information. You're not just going to Google stuff anymore. We know that if we want to know about an individual, I'm going to go search Twitter for them, right? We're going to go look. I'm not going to go to Facebook to look for an individual, but I'll go to Facebook to look for a brand and to see if they're engaging and see if they understand how to talk to their audience and what that brand's temperature is in terms of its ability to actually understand who its audience is. Does that answer your question? Okay, good.
Okay.
We can talk more about that.
We did know there was a fan page because we talked about it, and we did have a hashtag.
We did have a hashtag. Okay.
It was
Oh.
Pure Momentum.
Okay, thanks for piling on that
good.
guilt thing. Appreciate that. Thank you. It's great having friends here. So, okay.
Cool.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for questions. Just thank Joey again here. What a fantastic time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.